Wally, would you mind telling us how it was growing up during the Apollo missions and landing on the moon? Oh yeah, I'd love to talk about that. Being alive during the Apollo space missions. I'll tell you. I was 10 years old in 1965. By the way, cheers for all of you picking up these items from Red Bull. I had one of the best teachers that I would ever have in my lifetime in 1965. I didn't know it at the time. He was pretty cool. Mr. Atkinson was his name. I'm sure Mr. Atkinson today is resting peacefully somewhere because he was older, but he was the best I had ever had up until that point in time. I had just nightmare teachers for me personally, nightmare teachers for me right up until grade 4 when Mr. Atkinson was my teacher. And this man was ex-military, ex-British military, and he loved the space program, and we were following the Gemini program. This is 65, the 2-man space capsule. So we had done the Mercury program. Now we had 2 guys going up at a time, and we were following the Gemini space program. And this guy, he was incredible. He could teach whatever he wanted because it was the one teacher for the whole day. You just had one. You had a teacher the whole day, every day. And so he fired up the chalkboard, and he had the big, here's Earth, here's the moon, and here's what we're doing. And they're showing the launch and drawing the circle around the planet and drawing the Gemini spacecraft and then what they were doing. And they had 2 up at the same time, and they would rendezvous. Are you kidding me? We'd send 2 rockets up. One went up, and then a few days later, the other one up. And then they met each other in space, and they were beside each other going around the planet. I mean, what? How do you do that? Are you kidding me? I mean, not even Star Trek was doing that. I mean, come on. And he was explaining to us the whole program, and then he was telling us the future, Marty, the future, Marty. This is what's going to happen next. They're going into a 3-man Apollo rocket, and that is the rocket that will take man to the moon, Marty. The moon. In 1969, they were estimating that man would land on the moon. That was 4 years down the road. I would be 14, and I'm thinking, 14? I'm only 10. I can't imagine being 14. I'll be this tall, and I'll have hair. I'll be married with children by 14. What's going to be happening to me at 14? Oh my God, my life is so different. I couldn't imagine it. Couldn't imagine it. What are you talking about? Grade 8, grade 7? I can't. I can handle it. I'm barely handling grade 4. What are you talking about? I'm going to be in grade 8. Get out of here. So Mr. Atkinson was really inspirational in that regard. So yes, fast forward to 1969, the Apollo missions. And we were watching. And of course, in those days, there were only 4 or 5 television stations that we could get. We were in Southern Ontario, living in Kitchener-Waterloo, Ontario. So we were close enough to Toronto, Hamilton, and Buffalo, New York. And so we were getting WKBW television out of Buffalo, and we were getting the other 2 stations that Buffalo had, NBC, ABC, CBS, then CHCH television from Hamilton, Ontario, the independent station, and then CFTO TV in Toronto and CBC out of Toronto, or our local CKCO in Kitchener, which was a CTV affiliate. And we're watching just with our dial, you'd snap the TV. Well, on CBS, rocket launches were live. And who were you watching cover the rocket launch? Walter Cronkite, the most trusted man in America. If Walter Cronkite said, this is what's happening in Vietnam, you knew that was what's happening in Vietnam. There was no fake news. There was Walter Cronkite, and he was the cover the newsman in London when the bombs were coming down from the Germans. Now he was the anchor of the CBS Evening News. Now there was Eric Severine, and there was also the David Brinkley and Chet Huntley guys, and the other. They were all there. But you watched CBS for rocket launches. You watched Mr. Cronkite. And so Apollo 11, that was going to be launched, and the world watched the launch. The world, because all 2 weeks before, and then 1 week before, we were getting the countdown in days when Apollo 11's rocket would launch from the launch pad. Oh my gosh, it was it was the only story, and every kid in school knew. I mean, like I said, I was in grade 8. That's all we talked about was this launch of this Apollo 11, a 30-story tall rocket, the equivalent of a skyscraper, 30 stories high, was going to launch. Now, we had already seen Apollo 8 and Apollo 7 and Apollo 10 and 9 and 8. We'd already seen those. The Apollo 8 rocket went to the moon and circled the moon and came back. Apollo 10 went to the moon, put on the brakes, and orbited the moon and had the LEM disconnect from the Gemini modular, and it separated, and it went down to 10 miles above the surface to do a dry run, and then come back up to the rocket, the LEM, and dock, and then bring the boys back home. They did that whole thing. That was like tension-filled television because you had to watch Walter Cronkite and his guest describe it to you, and then they had the models showing us what was happening, and then the animation was really basic. That's what we had, and that was cutting edge, and it was live. It was as good as it got. There was no other channel to see anything better than that. And then Apollo 11, and oh my God, the whole world, we just stopped and watched this launch right down to the countdown. I mean, 4 hours to countdown. We're live on television, 4 hours to countdown, 3 hours to countdown. We're all just, it wasn't going to launch for 3 hours. There was so much going on, and what's happening now, and then we're watching the astronauts walk down the path, go into the truck, be driven to the launch pad. Oh my God! I mean, the whole world was just, oh my, we might never see these guys again. We don't know. Are they coming back? It's a one-way. It might be a one-way trip. We don't know. I mean, it was just holy moly, and you're trusting Walter Cronkite to give you the play-by-play, because you know he won't lie to you. And we had heard, and we found out later, there was a speech written by the President of the United States for the President of the United States in case of the unthinkable, and whatever the calamity could be. That was all done. It was all ready. Oh my God. But as kids, I mean, I'm just jacked up as a 14-year-old watching this cutting edge technology happening in front of our eyes, computerized landing systems, portable radar systems in the LEM and the lander and all that. Oh, wow. What a cutting edge, the best of the best, the latest, the newest of the newest. What a world we were entering in 1969. And so that rocket came to liftoff, and we just were silent, and no one talked in the house. The TV was on. We were watching black and white television in those days, and this was live coverage of this rocket, the plume of smoke coming out from the bottom of her as she was firing up those 5 Saturn rockets, and then lift off, and it started at like a mile an hour. Just started, this gigantic skyscraper is lifting off the rocket, the launch pad, and you could hear the thunder, because they had microphones everywhere, and you could not hear Walter Cronkite speak. He couldn't talk. If he talked, we wouldn't hear him because he was 2 miles away, and he could have yelled into the microphone, which was right on his lapel. We wouldn't have heard a word he said. It was this massive machine, and it cleared the tower, and it started to tilt off the tower, just off, because already it's supposed to go around the world, not straight up to the stars. And so just over the tower, it's already leaning to the one side. And we're going, is this a problem? No, it's the normal. It's normal. It's fine. And up she went and got faster and faster and faster. And then within a minute, 2 minutes, the first stage was done, out of gas in the first stage, and then the separation and this massive flare, and you're just wow, watching that, and then watch that first stage slowly fall off into the ocean, and the rocket kept going, and within about 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 8 minutes, you couldn't see it anymore. So now we were watching animation of what was actually happening up there, somewhere up there, because this rocket was now way over the Atlantic and already heading over Africa and beyond. Just amazing. And so now we were getting updates all night long, and then they were live on television that next day from the cap. I think they were showing us from inside the capsule. Definitely talking to us. I think we had not sure if we had video on 11. I know we had video on 13. If you saw the movie, they had video, but by then the country didn't give a darn anymore. But 11, everybody watched 11. And they then did this interplanetary fire up, which is again, one of those, you guys are leaving the Earth's orbit and we can't come and get you if there's a problem now. You're on your own. And they fired her up and they went into interplanetary trajectory, and now for 4 days we're waiting and getting updates, and then into orbit. They had to fire the rocket at the back of the moon to slow her down, keep her in orbit. That worked out, and then they were circling the planet. Now we're going to bring out the LEM, and we're going to put the boys in the LEM, and we're going to bring the LEM down to the surface. Today's the day we're going to land on the moon. Oh my God! Well, everybody was watching their TV that day, to say the least, and again, it was all verbal. Even though we were watching television, we weren't seeing it live. It wasn't available live. There was not cameras showing this. There were film cameras filming it that we got to see when they got back, but not live as it was happening. So we were, again, watching experts showing us what was happening in the animation and telling us how many miles from the surface and so on, and how fast they were going, and then the landing. And oh man, the landing, that was just so tension filled. You could hear a pin drop in our house. I mean, no way could no one dared speak, because my dad had that look, that one look at what he had this look. You did something wrong, or he wanted you to shut up. He would just do that. That was it. That was all Dad had to do. The house went silent, and this rocket, this LEM was landing, and then they landed it. One small step for man, giant leap for mankind. Oh, wow. We're just going, I can't believe it. They're on the moon, but no pictures. No pictures. The first picture from the moon was when he was coming down the stairs. That's when we had a broadcast happening with the camera on the leg, one of the legs of the LEM. And we could see this grainy image of him coming down, and they're telling us what you're looking at. This is what you're seeing. He's walking down the steps. Oh my God. I mean, the world was just captivated completely. And then, of course, he was on the surface for a while. Then the second gentleman came down, and they were walking on the surface. They set up a camera on a tripod we saw the cable from the LM all the way here, and they put up the flag, and then the president's phone call, and then a few experiments. And they were only on the surface for 3-4 hours. That was it. That was the whole deal. Back in the LEM, and they fired off the planet. Not sure how many hours after that. It's all now so far back in time. They fired her back up, and the rocket worked, and they left the surface, and they were able to rendezvous with the mothership and transfer the rocks over and everything they needed. And then the LEM was let go, and they fired the rocket up to come back, and they made it back. Of course, they landed. The landing was a big deal. The president of the United States was on the aircraft carrier where they were to land and waiting, and it came down. It was flawless. And then they picked him up, and they had him on the helicopter, and they had him in these environmental suits so that no one would breathe their air, and vice versa, because we didn't know what moon germs they were bringing back, and into an Airstream trailer kind of unit that was all sealed off. And then the president was talking to him on a microphone stand, and they were behind the glass and waving at him. And that's what we saw. And then they were in quarantine for 2 weeks, I think it was, and no problems. They didn't bring any moon germs back, no issues. And then the world tour. They went on they did the parade thing throughout the United States, and their lives for the next 6 months was a zoo, complete zoo. We had no idea. These poor guys had to now do a parade after parade after parade, and did a world tour to visit all these countries. And they must have been sick of it by the time it was over, and they wanted to just be left alone for a while. I could totally get that, but these are the first guys that went to the moon and back. Two of them walked on the surface. What do you want? Unbelievable. The world had changed, and we had seen, we'd seen it all. But I'll tell you, that was pretty exciting stuff. Apollo 12 worked out. It worked out beautifully, except the camera that they were going to use on the surface, they shone it accidentally into the sunshine, and it burned out the lens. We had no camera on the surface of Apollo 12. Disaster. No one cared. Apollo 13 came, and we're kind of excited, but the ratings were down to a quarter, and the networks weren't even covering the next day live telecast from inside the capsule. But then the disaster happened. Houston, we have a problem. You remember when Tom Hanks told us? It was Tom Hanks up there. Well, then everybody paid attention to that. Now that was tension-filled. Oh my God, these guys are going to be lost in space. What's going to happen? How bad is this whole thing? And problem after problem after problem. You want to watch a good movie? Apollo 13 is pretty accurate.
Is that a good movie?
Jen is asking, is that a good movie? That's Jen's favorite movie of all time, if not the Hunt for Red October is number one, and this is number two. Sean Connery and Tom Hanks, dead lookalikes for yours truly. Of course, they're her favorite movies. There's no question about that. But yeah, we watched that. Apollo 14 we were interested in because it was the first one after the 13. It was flawless. Apollo 15 we were interested. They had a car now. The moon buggy, we were kind of curious about that. Apollo 16 and then 17, they announced as the last one, even though they had 18 and 19 and 20 set up. But 17 was the last one. And we all thought, oh yeah, Apollo 17, 1974, we'll be back. Or 72, 73 was the last one. This is just a temporary stall, and then we'll be back again. We haven't been back since. And it's a crying shame that mankind, after having perfected it, stopped doing it. Congress, politics, we're not spending that kind of money anymore on this stuff. No way. We're gonna do other things. And so that was the end of it. And then it took a long time until the space shuttle program happened, and that ended. Got killed with funding, and they didn't invest in the new vehicles and so on. And now it's all robotics. And the space station. No, that's what's taken over. But it's just not the same. It's not the same. It's not as exciting. But yeah, the world in 67, 68, 69, those 3 years leading up to the moon landing. Oh man, that was unbelievable. Never again, unless there's a mission to Mars, you'll never be as excited about a program like that. Unless we go back to the moon again. I mean, we do a moon mission. Yeah, we'll be interested in that. A manned moon mission, but the Mars one will be the next one that'll captivate the world. But it'll be on such a delay that it'll take, 8 minutes for the event to be brought. But you can count on cameras everywhere, from satellites and from the mothership and from the landing. There'll be cameras everywhere. But that's down the road a ways, kids. Right now it's the movies. It's all about the movies. And that's where we're going to get our fun from now. Anyway, I hope that answered your question. Again, thank you, all of you, for being here and asking these questions. I appreciate it.